So in today's session, we would see few cloud-related insights. If you're using any specific device, maybe your mobile, maybe your laptop, there are few applications which are default available for a certain device, which helps us kind of security service, kind of if there is some issue with the any application, if there is issue with your device, you can raise or maybe you can ask a question there. So for a cloud also, which is just like a device, maybe it's an online device accepted, it's connected to the cloud and we can log in it anywhere. But there are few applications which are default available in cloud, which will help us making our any questions, making our life very easy. If you come across any, um, situations where you are unable to guess what went wrong. Now, these applications are free of cost. We need not pay anything for these applications. These are kind of only additional help to applications to get more idea about what went wrong, to get more idea about where can we improve ourselves. So kind of default available, and which will act like, which will help us life, or maybe which will make our life easy if you're working as a cloud developer or maybe a cloud person. Now, we might have seen few insights related to Monitor. Monitor is a service available in the Azure where you can see how your uh, any specific application is working. Now in Monitor, if I click on the service health, see, for each and every region, whenever there is a downtime, um, that specific downtime is also mentioned in the service health. Now, if I click here, how many data regions are available? You can see all the number of data regions with the these blue dots, the healthy locations. So if at all there is a downtime, this would be shown with the triangular shape, kind of orange affected location. So as of now, every data center is up and running. There isn't any problem. All are healthy locations. Now, if I come down, see, in the planned maintenance, you can see if at all there is any planned maintenance. Now, maybe no planned maintenance as of now. If I again come down, there are few, see, health history. Now, in last 1 week, was there any event where our data center information went down, whether there was some issue, a kind of planned maintenance was organized? The information is all listed here. Now, as of now, there is no event which is being found. Now, if I come down, there are few security advisories also. Now, if one of your application is being used or maybe hacked by one of the individual from some other login, there can be possibility. Even your cloud applications can be hacked. Your cloud environment can also be hacked if there is a security threat. Even that security advisories, the health advisories are all listed here. Now, if you see in the health advisories, there is some issue. Action required transition from Azure Classic Administration role. Now, if I click here, see, you'll get certain insights. What it is trying to convey, that on 31st August 2024, Azure Classic Administration role will be retired. Your organization has to active co-administrator or service admin roles. Now, maybe with my application, with my login, the classic administrator role is being retired and there would be some other roles, might be co-administrator, maybe service admin roles. So this is a kind of service advisory that in future there would be certain change in your login applications and you have to follow that approach. You have to follow that process. And you can see the end time is mentioned in next 4 months. And when was it mentioned? I mean, when was it identified or when was it conveyed to us? 25 days ago. So every information related to your cloud can be captured in one of these applications. Monitor is related to monitoring your applications, monitoring your services, monitoring your complete login, where it went wrong. Now you can see in the insights, any of them which is going wrong, that would be listed here. Now, as of now, none of the application is down, so there isn't any possibility our information would be captured in this monitor. Now, apart from this monitor also, there are few more services which are default available in cloud. Now, if I take an example of help and support, see, these services are somewhere I can see it here, or else if you click on more services, you'll get list of all the services which are useful for us. Now, if I come down, I'll click on security. Let me see what else I have in this security. So there is one product called as Sentinel. If I come down in the security, there are two products which are called as Defender and Sentinel. Now, what do you mean by Defender and what do you mean by Sentinel? See, if you're using your laptop, if you're using your desktop, you might have come across the usage of um, any antivirus application. You're using any antivirus, maybe your Quick Heal, maybe your the any antivirus which you're using. The default antivirus is also available in your laptops. So this is nothing but an antivirus, a kind of threat protection tool for our cloud system. These two services, most specifically Defender. Now, if you are working in any organization and you're using your Teams, you're using your Outlook, even that applications are protected by this Microsoft Defender as an antivirus or maybe anti-threat. So what it does is it will capture uh, the insights of your Teams and your Outlook. So same can be utilized. The same process can be utilized. You can activate Defender for cloud. See, if I go above for 30 days, it would be free for any application which you're using, for any resource which you have created on the cloud. You can activate Defender for it. So what it does is, if at all there is a threat for that application, maybe certain individual is trying to hack that application, his insights would be captured and there is a very high possibility that hacking process would be rejected, or maybe it would be not succeed. So this will act like an anti-threat protection tool. And if I come down, you can see um, in this subscription, for which of these services, what would be the cost? The cost is mentioned here. You can see the cost also. Server per month, instance per month, server per month, billable resource per month. So we have a flexibility up to us for which of these applications we want to activate this. So if I activate Defender for cloud, it will not be defaultly activated for all the services. Only 30 days free trial you'll get, and which of this service, I mean, whenever you create a service, there you have an option, use Defender, activate Defender. So you can activate for individual service. Depending on the service usage, you would be getting the billing accordingly after 30 days. This is just an antivirus or threat protection. If I come down to Sentinel also, it's the same process. So moreover, there are few differences for Defender and Sentinel. There are few differences. If I come down, let's see what exactly the Sentinel is trying to convey. See, it offers 31 days free trial, and now you have to create a workspace for Sentinel. Let me see. So it's a kind of log analytical workspace, and see, what it does is it more specifically, I mean, Sentinel specifically captures all the logs, kind of your history, whatever processes you're using, whatever application you're, the service or resource which you have developed, for which of this, I mean, the reason why have you developed it, for which of the application you're consuming that specific resource or a service, all that logs would be captured. So depending on that logs, a kind of security service would be given to you, that if at all there is um, an attack, it will capture the attacker details also, from so and so email ID that process was trying to capture your resource or a service, and it will get that logs, I mean, visible to you. So more a kind of threat protection tools. So for us, not specifically required. See, this might look like a service which was defaultly available, but these two are paid services. This Defender you will get for 30 days and Sentinel you will get for 31 days as a free trial. After that, you have to pay for individual services. Now, apart from these, there is one interesting application. If I come down to Internet of Things, see in the category Internet of Things, I'm trying to see, come down. Now, if you see, yesterday someone had a question that what do you mean by logic apps? How is it possible? I mean, how can we create the logic apps? In the logic apps, somewhere I've explained it is similar like the Power Automate. In the Power Platform environment, there is a tool called as Power Automate. Now, if I click down to Power Automate, see here also we get that flexibility. We can activate Power Automate or else we can activate logic apps both from here. Now, if you specifically want how Power Automate will look alike, let me show you. Or maybe how logic apps will look alike. Now, by the time it opens,
I have one small doubt.
yeah, go ahead.
Let's say I'm taking example of KSR data vision.
Hmm.
So if I already have created one database for KSR,
Hmm.
or you can say a workspace.
Hmm.
That workspace, I'm using different services like SQL or cloud storage. For
Hmm.
each, I need to activate this Defender, right? By default, Defender.
Yes, for each of the services, you need to activate Defender.
Okay,
Now,
and the
while, go ahead.
will start after 30 days.
Yep, after 30 days, you need to pay for the Defender service wherever you have activated or whichever resource we have activated.
If I'm using, let's say, 5, 6 services,
Hmm.
using Defender also. So the billing cycle will get multiplied by the same, like $15 per services.
Yep, yep. It depends. For every service, it's not $15. For a few of the services, it's $1 also. So what kind of service you're or what kind of resource you have activated, there only it will highlight the exact costing while creating of that service. Now, if I come down, let me show you SQL. If I come down to SQL database, click on create. Hmm. Now, if I scroll down, networking, security. See, in the security tab, while creating the SQL database, Microsoft Defender for SQL. Start free trial now. And after that, what is the amount you have to pay? Now, um, the amount is very high. If you can see 1247.9202 Indian rupees per server per month. That means it is giving you some additional security. Now, this Sentinel or Defender can be utilized only when you are creating your application with a high-end usage. Now, if you see, the SQL Server is created for a month where the DTUs are very high, and it is costing around 22,186 per month. Now, if I come down, basic, let me change the consumption here. I need to configure. Get down to course. I'll go with basic. This looks good. And it should be locally redundant storage. Now it would be costing around 407 if I go to security. So here also, if you see, I'm in the security tab. Ideally, our database is costing 407. That means we can only maximum consume 5 GB. Now, here I might have kept a limit that we can consume maximum. Okay, it's around 2 GB, but on an average, you can consume 5 GB altogether. Now, in this concept also, in this scenario also, if I go down to security, our Sentinel is costing you 1247. So this will not vary what kind of database you are activating. This will only take it as one server per month. Per server, this is on server level, not on database level.
Okay.
Now, if I come down for any SQL, it is must that you need to create a server, and I already have a server. If I go down to the home tab, if I go down to my subscriptions, in this subscription, there is already a SQL server which is created. Let me come down. So there is already a SQL server which is created. For every SQL database, you need to first activate server, and server is free of cost. It is not paid service. It is free of cost. Under this server, you can click on this server and you can create a database. So you can create 10 databases, you can create 20 databases. For all the databases under one server, it will only cost 1247. That's Defender service. So it varies. This is with respect to SQL. With respect to your virtual machines, with respect to your ADF, it varies. The Defender service varies.
Okay, costing is fixed for
Yep. It is fixed at server level. It is fixed at the highest level of hierarchy. Now, for SQL, it's server. For virtual machines, it is per virtual machine. For ADF, per instance under that ADF. Now, getting over to the Power Automate. See how exactly the flows, how exactly the logic apps also will look alike. You'll get an idea here. It's almost similar like Power Automate. See, these are few auto-created flows. It will automatically create a flow. Let me take one of the flow where you'll get an idea. Find a meeting time with sender. Let me see. This is a flow. This is an automated flow, and let me click on continue. So what it is trying to convey, this tool, this specific flow, it is trying to capture meeting time of a particular person. I'll take on calendar. Under KSR domain, it will go and fetch the team details. Your flow is ready. So automatically flow has been created. Now, if I go down to edit, you'll get the exact flow. It might look similar like ADF where multiple activities are there. Now here, let it load. See what it is trying to do. This is one activity for a selected message, or for maybe for a selected person. It will go to the team. Now this is a team's activity. It will go and capture their calendar details. I have mentioned that calendar option at the start. Now, once it will capture the calendar details, it will initiate that calendar details in a certain variable. This is a variable activity. X is a variable. This is also a variable. So it is getting time, it is getting meeting duration of that specific person in two of the variables. And it will also capture sender user details, the exact person who is trying to send that message. Somewhere it will store meeting duration in a certain, if you see, if I get it down, so it is capturing this meeting duration in a certain variable. This is also a variable. Now, if I hover on this variable meeting duration, and at the last, what it is trying to do, it is trying to send a email to that specific person that at so and so time you do not have, or maybe you are a free individual, I want to connect with you. This flow, what it is trying to convey, this flow was created. If I go down to home tab, here you might have that option available. Let me see, desktop flows, where that options were built. Default options we get here. There are a few automatic flows which are automatically generated. We get that option. Create, find a meeting time with the sender. So the flow which has been created, it will find a meeting time for a particular sender. In ADF, you cannot do all these things. ADF is more specifically for bulk data load, bulk data transfer, bulk data cleaning. Now, this is capturing the details using your Teams, capturing the details using your Outlook, your calendar. All these processes can be done using Power Automate or maybe your Logic apps.
whoever trying to let's say
Send up, yeah, whoever is trying to look out for the other person's availability on today's for a meeting setup.
by
So it
default
will capture that.
this will send a calendar to book the meetings.
Yep. So there are few automatically available Power Automate templates. You can see there are many templates which are default available. You need not go and create the Power Automate flows. Now, if I click on see more, many of them are automatically available. Now,
Yeah.
if you come down for Power BI, also there are few flows. Create an item from a SharePoint list from Power BI, or maybe save a Power BI paginated report. There are a few more. If I come down, anything related to Power BI, I'm trying to check. Trigger an alert in Microsoft Team when Power BI alert is triggered. Now there is an concept called as alert in your Power BI, in a Power BI service. You can trigger an alert to the teams automatically when a Power BI will send an alert, or it will trigger an alert. So there are multiple flows which are default available. I mean, your individual effort is also not required. You can utilize any of these flows. The first thing is once you create this
But
flow, go ahead.
Yeah, we can search also based on our need individually. Then we can, because there are I think more than
Yep.
5,000
I mean,
automations.
the exact flow which you're looking out for, there is a very rare chance you will get it. Uh, I mean, most of them are available. If you see the sentiment analysis, somewhere I've taken an example yesterday, sentiment analysis on the tweets and push the result to Power BI dataset. So what it is trying to do, it will go to this Twitter, the X platform, where it will capture the hashtags. It will capture it somewhere around. Now if I click here, let's see how different is it. See, it is trying to capture from X platform, and it will generate that information using Azure Cognitive Service. Now this is a AI based service available. Now if I go down to portal, here in this Azure portal, let me mention Cognitive Service, the Azure AI service. It will capture that AI details using your artificial intelligence. Azure Cognitive Search is there. So it will try to capture these details somewhere in the Azure Cognitive Service. And from that service, it is further connected to the Power BI as a source. So here you can create your reports depending on the sentiment analysis for the tweets which you're looking out for the hashtags which you're looking out from the X platform. Yep, you can search with a keyword and it will pop up. Even that possibility is there. You can search in the search templates. There are many templates. Now if I click on email, anything related to email will come into picture here. Send Gmail attachments to a Dropbox folder. Anything related to email will be all captured here. Now if I come down, there is one more flow. Email me list of upcoming calendar events. So it will go and fetch your Outlook, it will go and fetch your Office, and then it will send an email. Now if I again come down, get email reminders in the email. Get daily reminders in the email. So there are many default flows which are available. You might, if I, this is in Power Automate. If I again go back, more resources or more services, I'll go to Internet of Things. If I click on Logic Apps, see, the Logic Apps is a service. It's an independent service. Power Automate is also a service, but it's a different environment. It will create a different Power Platform environment under which a Power Automate is there. So whatever flows you are getting, the same flows would be coming here once you create a Logic App. Power Automate, it's a kind of free. It's a more a kind of free. Why? Because it's part and parcel of your Microsoft 365, the suite.
We have this data cleaning activities here as well when compared data collection when you just go into it.
You know, cleaning is not there. Data
Okay,
collection activity is there.
we cannot transform any either
Yep,
of the data.
we cannot transform that. That restriction is with ADF only. Here,
Mhm.
more specific to your artificial intelligence, you're capturing certain details, maybe storing it certain variable and getting it published using an email or getting it published via table, somewhere related to your services which you're consuming. That all activities can be done here.
Ritesh, we learn. We can use the common workspace in both
No,
places.
no. Logic Apps is different. Power Automate is different. Totally different.
So in Logic
Different
Hub,
in the sense usage of data, your workspace will totally remain different. But what you see in Power Automate, it's 100% same which you will get in Logic Apps.
Ritesh, will we learn Logic apps in this course, right?
Yep. We would be learning, and I'll be giving you two examples how to capture the details and how to. So more specifically, this Logic Apps, if you're working as a Power BI developer, it would be used to capture your Power BI entities or maybe to send an email alert. Now that we are going to see how is it possible. I mean, how can we create that? Now, if I go down to the Automate environment, see whatever flow I'm trying to create, that flow would be captured here. And if I again click back on it, I'll go to the edit option. Here you can edit your flow. Now these individual activities, let it load. Now these individual activities which you're seeing it here, if you want some new activity, click on new step, new activity, choose an operation. So these are all the activities. So activities in Power Automate or activities in Logic Apps are also called as actions. Every step is called as an action. This is one action, this is one action. Activity is more specific to ADF. mean, you can use that same word in the Power Automate on or in your Logic apps also. There won't be any as such problem, but most specifically, the exact word is action. This is one action, this is one action, this is one action, this is one action. Every action has its own behavior, and you can select what action you want. I've clicked on new step. I want to add a new action or new operation here. Now, if I click on email, I'll get a email related actions here. Anything related to your mail, your Office 365 Outlook, your Gmail. So you can see anything related to email, which is available in built-in, which is available as a standard. Maybe if you remove this, all the actions which are available, you'll get the list of actions here. So from a data analyst point of perspective, where exactly is it used, how exactly is it used? Yeah, we would be seeing few examples here. And if you specifically want to learn this Power Automate, it's a separate I mean, a completely separate environment. There are few openings you might have also seen. Power Platform environment, where you need to know Power Automate, as well as where we need to know Power Apps. Using Power Apps, you can develop a small application, a mobile application, or maybe your website application also. Now, coming down to our Azure, see in this Azure, there is a service which is called as help. At the start also I've seen, if I simply type it help, this is one important service which we need to keep it in mind, because if at all you are using your Azure and one of the services defaultly you have created by mistake, and you want to delete that. Even there is a possibility you can delete that specific resource or a service which you have created. But in a case, by mistake you have created a certain service and it is consuming your revenue, even though you haven't used it, but it has consumed your revenue, you can raise a ticket here. You can come down to help and support, and there is an option called as create a support request. So you can raise a support request. It will give you certain suggestions. See, this is much important. Help and support, you should know how this help and support will work. Now, if I come down to all support requests, see, I also raised few of the support requests. Let me go back to the all
Any
history.
chat line for this support? Like 24.
Uh, any
Any chat time period for
That time is different. Whatever support request you're raising, depending on the severity, they'll reach out to you. So there is a severity assigned. Depending on the severity, the turnaround time will vary. So I have raised these two requests 213 or 265 days back. Now, forget there are few wording mistakes. So whenever, the first time when I have activated Fabric, you can see Fabric was, costing me around 10,000 per month, one of the SKU. So I wasn't using it, but defaultly, just to look around, I've created a Fabric subscription, and it's almost spent 10,000 for one day also. So I've raised a request that this is what the issue happened. I was looking out for certain information, but it automatically got created. Could you please look around? I haven't used it. So I've raised a ticket. So depending on the request, your turnaround time, your severity varies, and every time you raise a request may not always get a positive outcome,
for
because
Fabric? They haven't given any trial period.
Fabric 60 days is there. After 60 days, you have to use your SKUs. You have to create your SKUs. Now, I also wanted to show you one interesting service. If I go down to analytics, where is that service I'm trying to see? Hybrid, nothing related to security.
Ritesh,
Mhm.
this separate class for this fabric is not yet created, right?
Separate class for Fabric in the sense, see,
Uh, like uh,
whenever I'll try to explain the Azure, parallelly I'll try to explain Fabric. Now, the services which we are looking out for, every service is not available in Fabric. Once we
Mhm.
reach out to ADF, I'll explain how do we create ADF pipelines in
so
Fabric also.
can you differentiate between both of them, like on a notepad,
No
Uh,
difference. No difference.
no,
What
no
you
difference.
learn, what the ADF you learn in Azure portal, the same ADF is available in your Fabric.
Okay.
There is
And
no as such difference.
I just wanted to ask, like, when this recording will be added to a separate class, like if
Sep-
you see, Power BI is a separate, and the interview questions are separately added in the app.
you'll get an idea. See, I
Because
guess this
actually,
complete
we try to
cloud
search the
recordings.
recording. It's very difficult to find the recordings.
mm, I guess Mahesh would be the right person to answer why. It's a separate course. I guess it's a separate course which is created for you. Maybe let me check with him. He'll be available
Yeah,
once this
because
class
if
will.
it's separate course, then it should be added to our batch in the class.
Sure. You will be added. You will be added.
It's
It's
very easy
defaultly.
to
See,
access.
the thing is, it is defaultly added. Maybe it is very, I mean, tricky to find for you people. So he would be helping you out.
Yeah,
Mm,
sure.
There is there's one
This
service
is
called as. Hmm,
this
Go
is the
ahead.
second class yet, right? For Fabric and Azure.
No, it's fourth session.
It's the fourth section.
Yep. So there is a service called as document intelligence. Now, what do you mean by this document intelligence? This is a separate service. You have to create it. Let me see if I can create it. This is resource group. Uh, okay, so document service. Now I have to select the pricing tier. Let me go to next. Enable system assigned identity to grant resource access to other resources. Now, what do you mean by this document intelligence? See, if you are working on any specific document and you want to scan that document, um, this if you have used your Google image in your camera, most of your cameras in your Android applications. See, if you're clicking a picture of a certain document and you're searching it online, depending on what is mentioned on the document, you'll get some insights. That same service can be created as a document intelligence. If you create this service and if you hand over a document to it, um, depending on what kind of document, what kind of information is mentioned in the document, it will try to answer, or maybe it will try to suggest few informations, few suggestions, or maybe it will try to answer few of the questions which is asked in that document. So it's a kind of artificial intelligence. It's just a kind of artificial intelligence. It will read that document and it will generate some data. So this is one of the interesting service. Let it be created in the background. There is one more service which we need to look out for, or maybe which we need to get an idea is, if I go to this monitor, there is a service called as cost management, billing and cost management. And monitor, we do not have it. Integration, identity, where is it? Okay, if I go to general, yep, in the general tab, here you have this option called as cost management and billing. So even this service is much important. See, whatever resources you're consuming, depending on that, your cost would be generated. Now my current cost is around 162. This was the previous month billing. When was the last bill generated? If I go down to invoices, you can see how many invoices have been generated till date for whichever invoice date and billing period. Every information is mentioned. Um, Here also there is an option called as new support request. So it will automatically navigate to the help and support. Now here one more important thing is, if I go down to overview cost management, so there is an option called as set an alert. In the overview tab, there are few options here, cost alerts. Now for any of the service where you can set an alert, or maybe you can set alert that this service is not working properly, you can set an alert here. You can click on add alert. So it will create a new alert rule. Now, what type of alert you want? Whether your application an anomaly is detected, whether there is a reservation utilization. Uh, that means your subscription is not working properly. There is a billing issue with the subscription. You want to change it. An alert would be triggered. The same alert which we get in Power BI. So it's one of the important service. Now, in cost alerts, there is one more alert. If you want to set up an alert on your complete subscription, a budget alert, click on add budget alert. See here, if you come down, it is trying to give you some insights. In last 4 months, I have utilized 2,580 Indian rupees, or maybe this is what the exact usage is. In last month, it was 237 rupees. Maximum monthly forecast is 121 rupees. This is a graphical representation. Now here you can create a new budget, from which date to which date you want that budget to be, and in which month that budget you want to be, that alert should be created, and you can give an amount. Now, assuming that you will get 16,000 Indian credits, the Indian rupees, you can set up an alert for 10,000 Indian rupees. Now, whenever you are crossing, now you have to creation date is 24, expiry date is also 24. From which date? You have to select that month. Now, from the month of April, I want to get created. From so and so date to so and so date, if my amount, that budget is going beyond 10,000, it will send alerts after every 5 minutes or after every 10 minutes to your email ID. Or maybe whenever you log in your Azure portal, you'll get a notification here. So
Ritesh,
this
this
will
is
help
a
us.
part of cost management.
Yes, it's a part of cost
Okay.
management. You can see it here.
Yeah, sure.
Now, um, Rakesh Kumar had a question that where can we find what is the exact service and what's the costing for it. This is cost in the same cost management only. You can see if I go to subscriptions, click on the subscription, um, scroll down cost by resource. If I click on view details, here you will get for each of the services which you have created, what is the exact costing. It will take some time to generate the graphical representation. Let me come down. You can see, and you have a flexibility. You can change the dates also. You can change the dates. You can add any additional filter which you want, for which location, for which invoice number, for which subcategory, billing period you want to add. You can add a billing period. If you come down, service names is mentioned. For SQL database, I have spent 237. For Azure Analysis Service, I've spent 50 rupees. For Azure Cognitive Service, I've spent 0. So depending on the service which you have created, it will mention all the details here. By service name, by location, by resource group. So if you're using a cloud, you should also need to have some understanding about these default services, your help and support, your cost management, maybe your monitor application. This will definitely make your life easy, because wherever you feel that your applications, your services which are not working properly in cloud, you can reach out to these services which are defaultly available, and it will try to answer where it went wrong, what is your billing. You can set up an alert, budget alert. Now anyways, we have seen all this. Let's just to give you an idea, just to give you a glance, our cloud is also like a device. So all the options which you get in your mobile, your desktop, that all options are available in your cloud. And this is similar for any cloud. This is not with respect to Azure only. If you go with AWS, if you go with GCP, if you go with your Oracle cloud, if you go with your Salesforce cloud, any cloud, you'll get these applications. This help and support your monitor applications, some security applications or security services. These are defaultly available for all the cloud services. Now let's move over to the ADF. Now, prior to moving over to ADF, let's start with a small story. What do you mean by ADF and how this ADF will work?
Ritesh, this is the area. It's the ETL tool that
Yep.
you are covering now.
Now, yesterday we have seen two services. today we will start with a new service, service 3. Now it's Azure Data Factory. Now, prior to starting with ADF, let's start with a small story. Now, you have um, you've got a good promotion from your company, or maybe you have got a good gift from your um, family member, from um, um, your parents, or maybe any person who's close to you. You have got a good gift. Now, that gift or a promotion, in case of promotion, you've got a good money and you're trying to purchase a gold. Now, in terms of gold, either you purchase your the 24 karat basket, or you purchase any jewelry. Now, how many of you um, purchase gold and keep it in your um, home? Or maybe you want to keep it in your bank locker. How many of you will prefer either you keep it in a bank locker or either you keep it in a home? How many of you prefer home, or how many of you prefer locker? Because this gold is a bit costly ornaments or costly metal. So how many of you prefer home, or how many of you prefer bank locker? Or which is more safer, bank locker or home?
They will responsible for any
Bank lock.
Mhm. And why is it safer as compared to home? Because see, even you can get a locker in your home. If you keep it in your the cupboards, there is a locker for a cupboard, but there is a very high possibility. But if you're not in your um, location, or maybe you're not in your home, you went out, there is a very high possibility that you might be in a dilemma that someone would come here and someone would break that cupboard and take that gold away. There can be a possibility. If you keep it in bank locker, it's more kind of secured. Now,
Yes.
why it is more secured? You'll get bank security. Apart from bank security, there is an additional locker which is assigned to you. Even for that locker, there is a key. Now, apart from you that locker key, you can individually add your key. You do not have um, a kind of. There are few people who are not even um, the key which is given by bank. They are not even satisfied with that. They individually add a key. From an outside, they'll individually add an additional key, a small key. They'll try to lock it with that small key, the locker which is in bank. So these are all the additional security measures which you get in your bank lockers. Now, if you want to access this, if you want to access this bank locker, you have to first visit a branch. Then only you can access it. You can directly cannot visit a locker. There is no direct route. If you have to visit a bank branch, from that bank branch only there is a route which is created for this locker room. You can directly cannot directly enter the locker room. You have to certainly follow an process. You have to sign a visit application or visit book. Then only they'll navigate you to the locker rooms. So all these processes are followed. So in terms of ADF, the same process is followed. See, it is similar like your locker where you keep your belongings, maybe gold, your ornaments, your any documents, whichever component which you feel is an important component in your life and which you cannot keep it at your home just for an additional security measure, you try to keep it in your bank lockers. Now, you can compare the same process with ADF. See, ADF is nothing but a ETL tool. In simple process, it's an ETL tool. But to work on this ETL process, to create this ETL environment, you should also know there are few components which are important in terms of ADF. That components we are going to discuss. Now, there is a component. Let me list out these components. You'll get an idea. I'll compare that same components with the locker example which I've taken. There is a component called as activity. There is a component called as data set. There is a component called as linked service. There is a component called as triggers. More than enough. Now, the same, there is a component called as activity. Activity is nothing but your transformation window. The same transformation window, which we have got in the Power Automate environment. If I go down to Power Automate, here we call this as an activity, we call this as an action. That same option is available in the ADF, is called as transformation window. Now, in case you want to compare it with your locker example, transformation window is nothing but where you can do all your processes. Your logic can be built here, your information can be captured. Now, there are different activities in ADF. There are different activities. Now, on and around, there are 30 activities. On and around, there are around 30 activities which are present or which are available in ADF. It's a simple transformation window. Now, what do you mean by data set? See, you're trying to access your locker, you have to visit a branch. So branch is the one where a locker is kept. I mean, you can directly visit a locker, you can directly go. There can be there was a possibility, then they might have created a direct route to access your locker. But if you directly access your locker, there is some security. They have to follow certain security process protocol, that you have to visit a branch, you have to mention your details, what locker you are accessing, who is the person, are you the correct nominee, are you the correct person on whom this locker has been assigned to. So they'll check all these details, then only they'll try to send you to the locker. So first thing is you have to visit a branch. So visiting a branch means you cannot directly access a locker, you have to visit a bank. So visiting bank is nothing but a data set here. Now, what do you mean by data set? It will convert any specific information which you are accessing from any source to the ADF environment. Now, let me explain it with the diagrammatic representation. It would be very easy to understand. This is one source. This is one more source. This is one more source, and you're using an ADF as an ETL tool. You want to access these three different sources information and gather it somewhere in one of the destination. Now, in order to access this is ADF in between. Now, in terms of ADF, how it will work? First thing is it's an ETL tool. So ETL means it will start with extraction of data from a source, then it will do some transformation, and then it will load to certain destination. Now, the first thing, extraction, it will extract this information. It is trying to extract this information. Now, where do they keep this extracted information? This extracted information can be from a different data sources. This might be SQL, this might be Excel, or maybe a storage account where this Barkway file is kept. This might be any other application, which is a cloud-based application. Now, you want to extract these three files and you want to convert these files in a single environment, because you need to you need to load this file into certain destination. Now, this is one destination. In certain destination, you want to convert these files. Every file has its own behavior. Why? Because it is coming from a different source. So you want to convert this into the ADF environment. It has to be converted to the ADF environment where all the files would be captured in one single source, or maybe one single platform. Now, this is coming from SQL, the SQL structure would be different. This is coming from Excel or a Parquet file, the structure would be different. But it has to, at the end, it has to be converted in a one single format, which is readable. So that conversion in one single format is called as data set. Whatever data you're trying to load from different sources, the data set will act like a barrier between that source and ADF transformation, where every format of data would be captured and it will be converted to one single readable format where the transformation can be done. That one single readable format is called as data set. Now, while you're connecting your data set, that means it is the ADF format data. Data set is ADF format data. Whatever data you're trying to load from multiple sources, it would be converted to the ADF format data. Now, ADF format means this is a bank branch. You want to visit a locker, that means you have to visit a branch. So this will act like a locker. Sorry, this will act like a branch, a medium. Now, whenever you're visiting a branch, you'll visit a locker. In order to visit locker, you need to have a key. A key would be shared with you, and a bank also has their key. You have to use that two keys only, then only that information or that locker can be accessed. Now, how that locker can be accessed? You need a key. In the similar process, whenever the data is coming from multiple sources and you want to dump that data into ADF readable format, which is nothing but a data set, there has to be a key. There has to be a certain security mechanism. That security mechanism is called as linked service. That security mechanism is called as a linked service. You are trying to connect a source, you're trying to extract data from multiple sources, and you are dumping that data to certain data set, which is ADF readable format. In order to connect that, there is a multiple connection medium. That medium is called as linked service. This is one linked service, this is one linked service, this is one linked service. Why? Because every source is different. For every source, there is one linked service is created. This linked service will act like a barrier. This will act like a communication medium between an external source and an internal source. Internal source is your data set. This data set will convert into ADF readable format. And if you're using any specific ETL tool, there is one concept which is, now if you take an Informatica, in Informatica, there is a transformation called as source qualifier. I'm not sure how many of you have learned this or how many of you know this. There is a transformation called as source qualifier. This source qualifier is nothing but your data set in ADF. What it will do, wherever, from whichever source you're trying to load that data in the Informatica, it will convert it into Informatica standard format. The similar process dataset will do. Dataset will try to convert multiple data sources from where the data is being captured, from where the data has been extracted, to the ADF readable format. And in order to connect your dataset and external source, there is a connectivity mode that is called as linked service. Now the question is, will ADF will automatically convert that data? Yes, it will automatically convert the data. You have to certainly mention few steps. Now that few steps is, one of the step is linked service. You have to create a linked service. You are linking an external source and to the internal source, which is called as dataset. Now after dataset means it is ADF readable format. You can connect this dataset to the transformation window, which is nothing but your activity. The transformation window is called as activity. You can call it as also a transformation, but in ADF terms, it is an activity. Now, activity, there are multiple activities. What is the process you want to do? I mean, what kind of transformation you want to do? You have that flexibility. Depending on that transformation, depending on your logic, you can select 30 different activities which are available in ADF. There are around 30 different activities which are available in ADF. First is linked service. It is connecting from external source to the internal source, which is dataset. From this dataset, which is connecting, this dataset is captured by activity. In every activity, there is one dataset, there is one linked service. Linked service is connecting to some external sources. Now, activity is nothing but your transformation where your logic can be written. There are 30 different activities. Depending on your exact logic, depending on your exact requirement, you have to select which activity is the best suited. Now, after activity, whatever information, whatever logic you have performed, you have to dump it to certain destination. In order to dump it to certain destination also, the same process is used. That same process which we are using at the source, you have to create that data set. Because the data is in ADF readable format, you have to dump that data to the format which you are looking out for as an output. Now output, I want to dump it into a storage account only. Now in that storage account, that file should be either CSV file, either an image file, either a Parquet file. The files which are formatted, the files which are available in the storage account, that files, it has to be converted. So in order to convert that, again, there is a data set. This data set will be connected to the destination using a linked service. This is linked service. Why? Because you are connecting the ADF format data to the external format data. That means it will reconvert that ADF data to the format which you're looking out for, which is a storage, or maybe a blob, or maybe a storage account. So it will connect with a linked service. This is again a data set. This activity is connected to this data set via a certain pipeline. See, this linked service is connecting to the data set. This data set is connecting to the activity. This activity is again connecting to data set, and this data set is again connecting to some external destination via linked service. So the exact flow of data is, now whenever you want to connect it to some external system, you need a data set, you need a linked service. These are multiple sources.
Here we have an input and there's an output, right? Whatever input we give. So the destination is an output, is that?
Yep. Destination is the output. This is data set. At both the ends, we need to have a data set. Why? Because even though we are connecting it to some external source, or maybe even though we are dumping it to some external source, you have to convert that data into data set format and using a linked service. This is all linked service. This is one 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 linked service. This is your activity window.
I have a question.
Mhm,
If the source, I mean, input source file type is like SQL, and
mhm.
after the transformations, can it be converted to the CSV?
Yes, yes, yes. It can be.
Okay.
Now you have to select what activity is best suitable there. I'll try to explain what all activities we have, but let's first understand the architecture. Now this is destination and this is source. This is source. So you're trying to connect multiple sources, convert it into ADF format, which is dataset, use your transformation here. Once the transformation is done, again, dump it to a dataset, and then using linked service only, connect it to multiple destinations where you want to dump this file. You have that flexibility. You can dump it to multiple destinations also, or maybe one single destination. Depending on the requirement, it varies. Now, all these processes are connected via certain pipeline. There is a pipeline here, there is a pipeline here, there is a pipeline here, there is a pipeline here. This complete process is connected by one single long pipeline, which is called as a pipeline. These complete processes are connected via a long pipeline, which is nothing but a flow of data. The same option which you get in Power Automate. See, every activity, every action is connected via flow. Here it is called as flow. Here in the ADF, it is called as activity. Sorry, it is called as pipeline. There it is called as flow. In Power Automate or Logic Apps, it is called as flow, and activity is called as action. Activity is called as action in Power Automate or Logic Apps. That same option. See, there isn't much difference. Almost every option is same. Activities will vary there. In Power Automate or Logic Apps, activities are different. In ADF, activities are different. But all these processes are connected via flow or a pipeline, which is nothing but a connection mode. Everything is connected in one single pipeline. So if you execute this complete pipeline, there is an option, a run pipeline. All these processes would be executed in one single go. In ADF, there is an option called as run. Once you run this, that means you're running complete pipeline. All these processes will run in one single go. Now, pipeline can be automated. There is an option called as run. That means you're manually running it whenever you require. You want to automate this pipeline at this specific time that this pipeline needs to run. So you can automate that pipeline. That automation is called as trigger. That automation is called as trigger. There is an option called as trigger. You can set up a trigger. There are three different triggers in ADF. But to get understand what do you mean by trigger? Trigger is nothing but your automating pipeline. At this specific time, it should run. That pipeline will run at that specific mentioned time, or maybe at that specific whenever a new data is added, depending on the event. Now there are three different triggers. One is schedule trigger, one is tumbling window trigger, and one is event based trigger. I'll try to explain it, but prior to that, let's understand what do you mean by trigger. So if I come down, we have discussed activity, we have discussed data set, we have discussed linked service, we have discussed trigger, we have discussed pipeline. The only part which is left is data flow. Data flow is nothing but your pipeline only. It is just like your pipeline only, but this is zero code pipeline. This I'll try to explain it at the end of ADF. Once you get ADF in depth, you will get this data flow easily. Somewhere you can relate it with your Power BI data flow also. Somewhere, I'm not saying everything would be same. Somewhere you can relate it, but it is slightly different than your Power BI data flow. Slightly different. The process is same, but the information which we are capturing it is slightly different. But prior to that, let's understand the components of ADF. Activity is the main logic or transformation window. Dataset, it will convert it to the ADF readable format. Linked service, it's a connectivity medium between your ADF and the dataset and your external source. Might be source or external destination also. Linked service is also used here. You want to dump it to the external destinations, you want to connect it to the dataset, that means you need to have a linked service. It is just a key. Linked service is nothing but your key. Dataset is nothing but your branch. And once you visit a branch, you are accessing that information. That logic you have to apply, that logic is called is your locker. Your locker is nothing but your logic where you are keeping all your essentials. Now, any questions on this activity, dataset, linked service? Any questions?
Ritesh, the data is coming from different sources. It's coming from 3 to 4 different sources. So the data is stored in the data set. So what kind of format that is stored? Is it in a columnar way, or how Power BI engine works, or how the data is stored here? So it's coming from different multiple sources.
Now,
So we try to
if
know.
you're loading from multiple sources, depending on the activity which you're looking, I mean, if you are choosing, there is an activity called as copy activity, and you want to copy data from SQL to a link, maybe a storage account as a CSV file. So if you're getting that data from a SQL, that means it's a structured data. It would be stored in a tabular format only, the table format only. Now that data
Okay.
using copy activity, there is source, there is destination in this copy activity. It will capture that data, it will convert that data into the CSV format, and it will dump that data in that CSV, Excel or CSV or Excel, whatever format you're looking out for. Now, while creating the data set only, you have to verify in which format you want to dump. You want to dump in Excel, you need to create an Excel data set. You want to dump it in CSV format, you create that CSV dataset format. See, while creating dataset, you have that flexibility in which format you want to dump or in which format you want to copy. Depending on that, you have to select that option which are available in dataset. Here also we have that flexibility. You want to connect to SQL, that means it's a structured format. So you have to select SQL option while creating a dataset. While creating dataset itself, you need to select SQL. Now, once I'll show in ADF, it would be easier to understand, but let's first understand the architecture, how it converts, how it captures the data. That I'll try to explain it when we create the ADF as a service.
Yeah, sure. And since also we are connecting the link services at the end of this, so the destination, all of these data is stored in any of the storage account or blocks, or how that is stored.
This is one just example. Vice
Okay.
versa can also happen. You can capture from
Okay.
storage account and you can dump it to SQL also.
Okay.
This is just an example. Vice versa you can do.
It is.
Hey.
So all the active, like you said, 30 activities are
Hmm.
part of the all the different transformation, like
Hmm.
lookup tables or copy activity. These are the examples.
Hmm.
And where I know this is for, like you said, we're gonna use SQL or just copy and drop those like low code activities there. And then
Hmm.
where does the ADB comes there in the picture? Since ADB is for a little bit for big data or advanced transformation kind of. Is
Yep.
there?
Yep.
Okay.
So you're looking out for ADB, the Azure Databricks. Um, Assume that you want to copy a data which is a bulk data. Now the bulk data means you're working. Let me take an example. It will simplify it for you. Uh, Now, from a certain source, the data format, I mean, the size of data is very big. You want to copy around 1 TB of data, 1 TB of data, and there is a possibility you can copy this 1 TB of data from a source, and using certain transformations, you can use multiple activities. Whatever logic you want to perform, you can use multiple activities, perform that logic, and dump it to certain maybe a SQL database or maybe a storage account In one single file, you cannot store. You have to break that file. 1 TB file, you have to break it in multiple files. But if you're using a ADF here, ADF can be used to transform 1 TB of data. If you're using ADF, 1 TB of data, it will take much time to completely run this pipeline. If you're using 1 TB of data and you are doing multiple transformations or activities, there is one single pipeline. So assuming that 1 TB of data, it will take 4 hours to completely run this pipeline, make that logic transformation in the transformation window and dump it to certain SQL or a storage. It is taking 4 hours. That means it is consuming around 4 into 60, 240 minutes. Now you have to spend 240 minutes, or you have to waste 240 minutes of your time to completely run this pipeline. Now in ADF, what they have done, if you're using ADF, you can also use an activity called as ADB. There is a default activity which is present in the Azure Data Factory, which is nothing but ADB. ADB is nothing but Azure Databricks. Now, why the picture of Azure Databricks is coming in the ADF? What Azure Databricks does is, Azure Databricks, it's a big data platform. Here in ADF, you need to create, the information is created or information is stored in notebooks. Now, what do you mean by notebook? You have to write your logic in the notebook. It is just your notebook. A simple plain page would be available. You need to write your logic. Now, what is the benefit of using ADF is, ADB is, ADB, it will not take 4 hours to completely run this data. In ADB, there is a concept called as cluster. Now, in this cluster, there are nodes. Now, in nodes, there is one parent node, and for this one parent node, there are multiple child nodes. So for every parent node, there is child 1, child 2. You have to create multiple nodes. Now, what these nodes will do, if the data is 1 TB, this data would be partitioned in this ADB. The Azure Databricks notebook, the data would be partitioned. Now, how it will be partitioned? Depending on the node structure, depending on the cluster which you have created, how many nodes are there? Assuming that there are 10 nodes. There are 10 nodes, there are 10 parent nodes, and for every parent node, there are 10 child nodes. So how it will be bifurcating? 1 TB of data would be breakdown into 10 GB of data. Sorry, 100 GB of data. Now for every 100 GB, 10 GB of data would be partitioned. That means 1 TB divided by 10 parent nodes, and that whatever bifurcation we have done, assuming that it's a 10 GB data. So for that 10 GB also, for every one parent node, there are 10 child nodes. So that one child node will process 1 GB of data parallelly. So processing data parallelly will reduce this time. If it would have been taken 4 hours in ADF, in Databricks, it will take around 40 to 50 minutes. So it is saving around your 190 to 200 minutes. Azure Databricks is a different service, but that service can be integrated in ADF as a one single activity. ADF can process 1 TB of data in 4 hours, assuming. So in that case, ADB, if you're using ADB integration with ADF, it will process 1 TB of data in 40 or 50 minutes. That's how fast the Databricks is. It is processing 1 TB, the big data, in few minutes as compared to the ADF pipeline. The same process you have to follow. The only thing is you have to delete all other activities which you are using in the ADF and only call the ADB activity. That answers your question?
Yes, yes, definitely. And then we have option of using Python, Jupyter, like Python or SQL on that. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We have an option called as Jupyter, maybe your Spark API, and that
Yeah,
Spark you can
Spark.
create your data frames, data sets, or your RDDs. Any others question? Any other question related to your ADF? Let me show you that diagram. It would be easier for you. Any question on the components of ADF? How this ADF will work? Any questions on the components of this ADF? See, first thing, keep it in mind, you should know the components. If you don't even know the names of this ADF components, it is very difficult to understand ADF. What is activity? What is data set? What is linked service? What is trigger? What is pipeline? Forget about data flows now. It is not much important also. But if you know these 5 components of ADF, your life would be easy. Or maybe your understanding of ADF would be very easy. And you also need to understand what activity does. what data set does, what link service does, what pipeline does, and what triggers does. Okay. So if there are no questions, I'll take a pause. I will create ADF tomorrow, the ADF as a service. I'll try to create that ADF as a service tomorrow, and I'll show you how that ADF, how these components are available in ADF. A basic pipeline we would be creating to get an idea to get started with the ADF.
Ish, how
Hmm.
much time does a pipeline runs in ADF now? What's the average time that it basically runs?
It is up to us. You can set up
Okay.
20 hours also. You can set up more than 24 hours one day also. I have seen pipelines which have been running for 48 hours. Even that is a possibility.
Okay.
Now, there are few setting options for every activity. There is an option how many hours you want to run that pipeline. You can set up that time. Assuming that somewhere your one of the activity is taking 1 hour to run, and today it is taking 1 hour. Assuming that on 2nd of April it is taking 1 hour to run. If the same activity is taking more than 4 hours tomorrow, that means there is something wrong with this activity. Maybe it is not able to fetch the data correctly from the data set, and from that data set maybe it is not able to fetch the data. This data set is not being able to connect to certain source using linked service correctly. There can be many possibilities. You have to go back and see. Now here you have an option for every activity. You can set up a maximum time. If you set up 1 hour, within that 1 hour that activity needs to run. If it is not running, it will fail at that specific instance. So it is up to us. You want to set up a time, you want to set up a limit, you can set up a limit. If you don't want to set up, don't want to, do not set up any limit. There are multiple options.
So in organizations, is there any time limit that we have to set? It depends on
Mm,
the
no,
data. How large is the data?
company will never ask you to set up certain time limit, or maybe your client will never ask you to set up time limit. If your pipeline is taking 24 hours, that means your data is large. It is straightforward, that means your data is very large. Now, in order to improve the process, you can see what possibilities you can, what possibilities you can do. The best approach is using your Databricks, but not every organization will recommend you Databricks. Why? Because Databricks is a different service. You have to create a different service and then integrate that Databricks with the ADF. So it's ADF and the ADB, the Azure Databricks, it's a costly service. So in that case, we have to go back and see where can we improve our pipeline, where can we make our logic changes. If at all it is taking 24 hours, some companies or some clients are also okay with 24 hours. Why? Because they need that data. If the data is large, they do not want to, utilize the Azure Databricks. Still, even if your pipeline is taking 24 hours, there won't be any as such problem. You can run that pipeline for 24 hours. There is no specific time limit. Some of the organizations or some of the clients would recommend that every activity should not take more than 2 hours. So most of the activities default they're kept to 2 hours as a timeout. You can change that 2 hours to 24 hours as well. Default every activity comes with 2 hours timeout limit.
Okay.
And if the activity is failing in the first glance, you can rerun the same activity second time. There is an option, rerun that activity. If at all it is failing, how many times also you want to rerun it? You can keep that count also. You want to rerun it thrice. So if this one activity is failing at one instance, it will run second time. If at all second instance it is failing, it will run for third time. If at all third instance is failing, it will run for fourth time. Why? Because you have set up 3 reruns. First would be default run, second would be first run, third would be the second rerun, fourth would be the third rerun. So default plus 3. 3 times it will rerun. 3 plus 1, which is default. 4 times. So multiple options are there. Once you get over to the ADF, you'll get some insights. Any more questions?
Sir, I have a question related to
Mm.
this. Uh, in Power BI, we are doing the same ETL operations through Power Query, and we are creating the Power BI data set, and we are doing. But coming to Microsoft Fabrics, also, as you said, like its ADF is in one other component. We will do the same ETL operations.
The
Still,
ETL which we do in ADF, and the ETL which we do in Power Query, there is a very large change, or there is a very, Power Query is certainly, there are few options in the ribbon bar. Up to that only you can perform your Power Query. There are some restrictions. In case of ADF, you can do much beyond your Power Query concepts. And this is an interview question, that why are you using, this was an interview. Nowadays, what is the difference between Power Query and any other ETL tool? This has not been asked. This was an interview question. But to answer this, there are few limits in Power BI. Our Power BI, if you load 1 TB of data in Power BI, there is no possibility. Still, if you want to load it, you have to break down the data. Now, how do you break that data? You have to write it at the query level. Rather writing it at the query level, you can use your ADF, get that 1 TB of data, bifurcate or distribute that multiple output files in separate CSV files as 1 GB or 10 GB, load that 10 GB of data in Power BI and do all your reporting. This breaking of data, this transformation of data, you cannot do it in ADF, your Power Query easily. If the data is going beyond certain limit, you have to use an ETL tool. And in case of Power BI, if you want to connect to some external source, assume that you want to connect to some SQL. Every time you will not get access to that SQL. Why? Because that SQL data is that SQL is owned by some other team. Maybe that SQL is owned by your client, and your client doesn't want to share that credentials of SQL. Now, in that case, how would you do? You can create an ADF pipeline, where in ADF there is a concept called as linked service. In that linked service, you can use keys. Now, there is a service called as Key Vault. You can use that Key Vault service. You can store your keys, your linked service keys in that Key Vault. With that linked service keys, you can access the data. Now, linked service keys are given by client. Client will create that Key Vault, and you can access that Key Vault with your login. You cannot see the username and password there. Only thing is, in this Key Vault, with this name, there is a SQL username. SQL username is kept beyond that key vault. Now, how is it possible? In simple terms, I'll explain it. You'll get an idea how ETL tool will differ from a normal Power Query. See, if you're using a SQL, now client doesn't want to share username, and client doesn't want to share password. Now, what he will do, there is a service called as Key Vault. In this Key Vault, there are multiple options. What he'll do, in this Key Vault, he will create one key. Here, the name of the key is visible, but whatever value you are storing in this key, you are storing username in this key, and again, one more key you will create. In this key, you are storing password. Name of that key is visible, but information stored in that key is not visible for the end user. So what he will do, he will try to call this name of this key. He will try to call this name of the key in the ADF pipelines, and he will get this SQL data, dump it into some storage account, and then connect that storage account to your Power BI. In case of Key Vault, name of a key is visible, but whatever is kept under that key, that can be hidden. Even that key value, if username is stored, that value can be seen, but that value is stored, that value is hidden. For a developer, that value is hidden. The only thing is you have to call the name of that key. With that name, you know that this is the username key, this is the password name key, and you have to mention that in your ADF pipelines. In the linked services, you can mention this. It will connect, it will transform that SQL data into one data set. Again, you have to write an activity, your logic, then again dump into the storage account. Does it answer? This is one security mechanism. This you cannot do it in your Power Query. You have to mention your SQL username and password, then only it would be logged in.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
So one, Power BI is the final part of the Microsoft Fabric. Data Factory ADF is the first part of which is the serverless integration service, which is the cloud version of SSIS.
Yep.
So two different, yeah.
SSIS extended version.
Right. How many components out of 7 components you're going to cover on this Data Factory, which is the most important component?
The
Power BI is already done.
Power
SQL is
BI,
part of it.
yeah, SQL and Power
I
BI is
mean,
done. We would be covering
yeah.
ADF. Let me open that sheet. It would be easier for you. These are all services we would be covering. The Azure Data Factory, we would be starting with. Now, along with Data Factory, you would be learning Key Vaults, you would be learning service principals or app registration. So these are all the individual services. The SQL server, how to create a server and how to maintain the databases, how to create your storage accounts. Maybe we have already started with this yesterday. At the last, I would be showing you how can we improve the performance of ADF pipelines using the Databricks, the ADB. What is the Synapse? Synapse is a combination of ADB. Synapse is a combination of ADF clubbed together. And at the last, we would be learning the flows, the logic app flows or the Power Automate environment. I would be taking logic apps. Power Automate is it's a different environment, but it's almost similar like logic apps. And this course is specifically developed for a Power BI developer, not for a data engineer. For a data engineer, you need to know in depth of Databricks, in depth of Synapse. If you learn this, then if you learn ADF, you can learn this Synapse and Databricks. You can move your career from Power BI to data engineering also in future if you want. But this course is more specific from a data analyst point of perspective.
Got it.
You are saying
Synapse
about the
is
storage
more of
service.
a data. We're gonna cover data warehouses kind of mostly, right?
Yep. So Synapse is nothing but an integrated environment where where you need to create a SQL, where you need to create a storage account, where you need to create ADF, where you need to create Databricks. Everything can be created in one single environment. That environment is called as Synapse. You can write your Databricks notebooks. You can create your ADF pipelines. You can write your SQL queries. You can store your storage account services. Everything can be done in Synapse. It's an integration of all these services, above services. Any other question?
In Fabrics, everyone is saying like 1 lakh data storage and everything. Whatever you're saying, like storage service is the one, or what you're saying? 1 lakh data storage, 1 lakh data storage.
1 lakh, yep. That same 1 lakh data storage. It's a part of ADLS is nothing but your data lake, man. As the Azure data. I'm not sure if you're present for yesterday's session. It's your Azure data lake. How to create ADLS, how to create your blob storage, I've seen. Maybe how to dump the data with the ADF we would be seeing. And Fabric is not only for data analyst, even for data scientists, even for data engineers also, Fabric has been introduced. If you go to this, data science is also there, data engineering also there, and data warehouse. Data warehouse means your data lakes will come into picture.
So these are the separate parts in the Power BI. How it will be, Synapse?
These are not separate parts. One thing, let me make you clear. 60 days of free trial you will get in the Fabric. Fabric is nothing but your extension of your Azure cloud. Whatever services are there in Azure cloud with respect to data engineering, data science, and data analyst, all that services they have clubbed in one single environment called as Fabric. And even Fabric is a product of Microsoft Azure cloud. If you go for 60 days, you will get free. After 60 days, you have to pay. And how do you pay it? If you go to Azure, there is a service called as Fabric. You have to create that Fabric as a license. After 60 days, it's a paid service. If you create a Fabric capacity, that Fabric capacity can be created here in the Microsoft Azure. So Fabric is also a product of Azure. The only difference is they have clubbed a few services which are already part of Azure as one single service, and they have created it as an independent service. That's it. There is not much difference. And you want to see how costly this Fabric is, you can see. Minimum you have to spend 24,000. Even if you don't use any of the services present in the Fabric, you have to spend 24K.
Okay.
After 60 days, these licenses are must.
So this is nothing but the combination.
Yep. Whatever ADF which we are learning in Azure, that same ADF they have clubbed in a different service called as Fabric.
Okay.
And they have integrated Power BI in that Fabric. what powerbi.com Power BI service was earlier. In that Power BI service only, they have kept all this Fabric environment, all this Fabric options.
So you will learn this course in this Fabric only, right, sir?
I would be explaining everything in cloud. How can you write? How can you use that in Fabric? Yes. See, once you learn ADF in Azure, you can do it very easily in Fabric. If you directly jump to the Fabric, see, people are more interested in what do you mean by Fabric accepted. I'll give you an example. If I go here, I can create a data pipeline here. Now, once I start with the ADF, I'll show you how to create pipelines in both the environments, in Azure Data Factory in cloud and the Data Factory in Fabric. And I'll compare both the environments. You will only get idea which environment is easier to learn. If you learn ADF here in the Azure portal, it is almost, it's 100% same in the Fabric. But the thing is, the UI is bit complex in the Fabric. UI is not that easy. Now, whatever I'm going to teach in cloud, that service I would be teaching it in the Fabric also. How to create it in the Fabric, I would be explaining it here also. So do not get confused. Any other question?
So what is the best practice? This is the new one Fabric. So
Best practice is go with cloud, understand cloud, and then go with Fabric. If you directly jump to Fabric, I can guarantee you no one will be able to grasp this.
okay, in the business point of view, which is means, this for the new.
You decide after 60 days of Fabric. If I'm creating ADF will almost cost you around 5 to 10,000 per month. And if you're creating your storage account, any other services, all services clubbed together, maximum it will cost you 20-25K for an organization. I'm taking an example, just an example.
Yes, sir.
For 25,000K, if you take a license of Fabric with F2 as a SKU unit, if I come down, I'm trying to create F2 as an FKA unit, you need to spend minimum 24K. Now, do you think with this 2 capacity units, you can utilize your Fabric? I mean, the amount of ADF, the amount of storage account which you're using independently in Azure cloud, it is somewhere similar to F16 or F32 in the Fabric, where you have to spend 1 lakh, where you have to spend 4 lakhs. Sorry, 2 lakhs and 4 lakhs.
Yeah, 8 lakhs almost. Yes.
So in that case, I'm not saying Fabric is not good. Fabric is still in preview version. This is still in development version. It will take a lot of time to grasp this Fabric. And I'll guarantee you, many organizations doesn't even know how this Fabric will work. They are simply mentioning it in their, you need to know a Fabric. A person with 10 years of experience, they're asking, you need to know a Fabric. How can this, I mean, this product was introduced last 1 year back, and in last 1 year, there are many updates in Fabric.
Yes, yes.
If I go back, I mean, in my own company, I work for a Microsoft. I'm working with the product team. I had to face many issues with this Fabric, that you can create a SQL server also in Fabric. There is a possibility you can create a SQL server. And if you create a SQL server, that SQL server was, I mean, that server, we were not able to connect it to the SSMS. We were not able to connect it with our VPN. There are many drawbacks. So it will take some time to adapt the Fabric changes. Even though they are mentioning Fabric, you need to know in your job description, that doesn't mean you should know Fabric everything. If you know that service in the Azure cloud, that same service can be utilized in the Fabric. So they're expecting you should know some understanding of Fabric, how Fabric works. If you know that, more than enough.
So basically, if you are in the cloud, using the cloud, Azure or cloud SQL Server or Power BI, then you're the part of the Microsoft Fabric. They just come up with a new name and then put it all together in one environment, integrated environment. That's what it is.
Yep. Any other questions?
Hi, the subscription is based on workspace level, or how the
For
subscription?
Fabric, if you activate your powerbi.com, Fabric would be automatically activated. For Azure, once we would be sharing your KSR email IDs, How to activate your account, I'll explain you. There you'll get 16,000 credits. The only thing is you need to have a credit card with you. Why credit card is required? See, Azure is pay as you go service. So you need to have a payment method for that specific portal. Now, 16,000 rupees are more than enough for our practice. You will get it for 30 days, which is more than enough. After that, you want to again reactivate it, you can use some other domain email IDs. That will be, that you can use it. Even using your Gmail, activation of Azure portal is, it is possible. But the thing is, you have to justify that I'm using it for my purpose, not for any organization. If you're using for an organization, you need to have that organizational email ID. And with the organizational email ID, it is very easy to activate your Azure portal. I'll show you how to activate it. Not even 1 rupee would be consumed from you, because you can set up an alert, budget alert, that if at all it is going beyond 10,000, it will give you email alerts. It will give you, every time you log in Azure portal, it will give you an alert that it is your limit is going beyond 10,000. Stop your service, stop your service. And whatever services I'm creating in Fabric, in my Azure, see, I might have created few services today. Now, in this subscription, how many services or how many resources I'm trying to create, I'm deleting it on daily basis. I'll delete it on daily basis. I'll not keep this service, because even though it's a pay as you go, even though you're not using it, why to keep this service? Delete it. So I'll follow this approach, and I'll make sure the same habit you'll follow. Any other question?
So we have more jobs in market related to Fabric now. Like still it is in how the companies are expecting like
Companies will expect you to know everything in 1 year only. They don't even, the company itself will don't know what is Fabric. That is the question. So the thing is, they'll mention Fabric. If you learn whatever is mentioned in Fabric, that is more than enough. You learn it via Fabric, you learn it via Azure portal, the Azure cloud portal, both are same. They're expecting you to know basics of Fabric, or maybe not the basic, but how Fabric works. If you know that, that is okay. That's feasible to get a job. And see, if you want to create a ADF pipeline using Fabric, you need to have the Fabric license. So do you think the organization will spend 25,000? They'll ask you to create the Azure data factory, the Azure portal. The amount of exercise which you do in Azure data factory, it will only consume 2 to 3,000. That same practice you want to do it in Fabric, you need to spend a minimum of 24k, 24 or 25k. So that varies. Costing is the most important thing which we have to capture. Companies don't know what costing is there for Fabric. If you ask a counter question, whenever a question is being asked to you in the interview, that do you know Fabric, without any hesitation, you say, I know Fabric. Let me ask you one more question. The minimum amount which we need to spend on a Fabric is F2 license. With that F2 license, we need to spend 24,398 rupees. Do you think a company will spend without utilizing any resource? Even if I utilize, even if I don't utilize, I need to spend 24,000. Do you think minimum of 24,000? Do you think your company will be able to bear that amount on monthly basis? If you ask this question, I'll guarantee you interviewer itself will be in a dilemma that what is this Fabric? How is it activated? Most of them doesn't know what is the amount they are spending on the Fabric. So that is one important concept. F2, F4, F8, F16, these are all the SKU licenses. And every license is costly. In the Microsoft itself, we are using F32, which is spending around 4 or 5 lakhs per month. And they have activated it for 1 month, they have deactivated it again, because not all the services we are using in Fabric, only few of them we are using. So you can go with Azure portal first. If you think every service can be utilized, then only go with Fabric. And costing is important thing. Your company can bear 5 lakhs, but client will bear 5 lakhs or not. That is important thing. Your company will give a bill that 5 lakhs we have spent on a Fabric to the client. So client will rectify. Do you think that 5 lakhs will justify the amount or the services which you have used? Client will ask that question to the company itself. So I'm not saying Fabric will not be used. First, think on the cost perspective. Whether is it feasible for the client, whether is it feasible for the organization to spend so much, then only go with Fabric.
So if you want to use Power BI service also, we need the Power
No. Power BI
the
service
Fabric.
is a separate thing. Power BI service, it's a separate thing. For Power BI service, you need Pro premium license, which is totally different. They have integrated the service in Fabric. If you do not activate a Fabric, you can still activate your Power BI service. And with your Power BI service, you will get 60 days of free trial of Fabric. That is what I'm trying to say. With Power BI service, you can get free trial of Fabric. But for Power BI, you have to pay separately. If you're purchasing Pro, $10 per user per month. If you're purchasing premium per user, $20, or premium per capacity, $4,995. That is separate. Any more questions? Okay, so silence, I'm taking it as no. Today's session 4, I guess. Yeah, session 4. Tomorrow would be the last free session. So in case if anyone is satisfied with my teaching, or maybe if any changes are expected, you can give me a feedback tomorrow. Maybe if I'm a bit faster, because see, you'll get only 30 days for your 16,000 rupees. So I'm taking it bit fast. Our pace will increase. That you have to bear in the sense you have to match with that pace. Now, even though I'm teaching it bit slow, once I reach out to the point where I think that you people are good to understand, I'll speed up the process. But wherever it is required, I'll keep the pace bit low. Basics is important, so that is why I'm taking it very slowly. Once the basics are done, I'll increase the pace. Okay, cool then. Let's connect back tomorrow at 8 a.m. in the morning. Yep. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good day.